Hello, Ray. Nick the Tiro here. It's another Saturday lounging around doing some of my own homework and work. Yes, faculty do prep on the course material and things like that. And I came across some thoughts as I was prepping and then reading emails from students and stuff like that. So I decided to make another kind of a study habit video. Now, in your career as students, you're going to find the optimal approach for you to study. So my suggestions are really just suggestions. You can use them or not use them. It's really up to you. And mine are based kind of on the side of the faculty and what how we develop courses and how we deliver courses. Now, we got to jump back into our Wayback Machine for a little bit, and I got to go back to my high school days. I had an English teacher, Mr. Petrovic, a very nice man. Actually, he ran the yearbook. That's how I knew him. And one day, I don't remember the circumstances of the story, but he told me a story, and it just kind of really stuck with me, even though I didn't understand why. It kind of came back many years afterwards why he told me a story. But he basically told me that during World War II, uh, they studied the damage pattern on bombers and to make sure that they would build better bombers that wouldn't be shot down. So they looked at the damage pattern and they say, oh, look, there's bullet holes over there and there. Why don't we put extra armor on those bullet holes? And they were discovering that the bombers were still getting shot down, even though they were putting extra armor on those bullet holes. And Mr. Petrovic told me a story that somebody basically said, hey, wait a second, why don't we put armor where there isn't bullet holes? If those bombers are coming back with bullet holes, we know that they can still fly. Maybe if we put armor on the places where there was no bullet holes, that's where the bombers are being shot down. And at the time, I thought he was just, kind of telling stories or something like that. And then years later, I started to do research on that topic, and it's a legitimate topic. Let's go up to my computer right here. So it's something called survivor bias. And here is a classic photo you probably or image you've probably seen on the internet many, many times where they kind of mapped out where these bombers were being shot and stuff like that. And there was a gentleman, let me go back. There was a gentleman named Abram Ward, and he was a statistician, and he was the person that basically said, hey, wait a second, we're not looking at the places where things are happening. It's a long, drawn out story. I encourage you to look it up. Look up survivorship bias and look up Abram Ward. And where this is going is many times we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And when we study, we will often focus on our strength. And we say, oh, you know what? I'm very comfortable in subject X. So I'm really going to concentrate on subject X. But subject Y is your weakness, and maybe subject Y is what could be potentially dragging you down. So I wanted to open up with that little parable, I guess. It's not quite a parable because it's true. It's a documented story. So as you're studying, one of the things you want to concentrate on is look for those weaknesses in your study and try to improve them. Now, let's take a look at some of my courses. And even before we go to the courses, I want to show you something that a lot of students kind of just glance off. We, what do you say, as faculty, we will put things into our syllabus. Hold on one second. And let me slide my syllabus over here. And this is in all my syllabuses. And it's this statement right here I want to focus on. That statement right here. Federal compliance, it is expected that the student will spend 2 to 3 hours minimally outside of the classroom laboratory performing course-related work such as reading, research, homework, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not coming from me. This is something that we have to put in our syllabuses or we have to make the students aware of. You'll notice this number here, 2 to 3 hours outside of the classroom per hour that you're in the classroom. Now, let me go back to the catalog. Let's take a look at ITIS 1007, which is basically our first course in our ISD track. You'll notice down here, the number of hours is 4 contact hours. So if we do the math, that should tell us that for that particular class, it could be 4 hours of classroom time. We're looking at 8 to 12 hours outside of the classroom every week associated with that. And that means if it's a 15-week course. If you're in an 8-week course, double that, because an eight-week course is an accelerated course. So if you were to take this class as an 8-week course, you would be expected to be 16 to 24 hours outside of it. So that's why 8-week courses are considered accelerated courses. Now, again, in our little math subject of our studying habits, student loan, credit hours, student loan. You ever wonder why? And again, I'm big into asking yourself question why, because it kind of answers, you'll begin to answer a lot of bigger pictures here. Why is a full-time student considered between 12 to 18 hours? And that, that's what the catalog says. A student carrying 12 or more hours is considered a full-time student. They can't go over 18 hours. Let's do the numbers in our head. We'll start with just the number 12. If I say 12 hours is a full-time student, that's inside the classroom, so 12 hours within the classroom, then it's going to be anywhere between 36 and 48 hours outside of the classroom. You see where it's a full-time student? That's more than a full-time job. If the student goes up to 18 hours, then we're looking at 18 hours in the classroom, and then 36 to, help me out here, 36 to 54. I'm trying to do the math in my head. 36, 54. That is a full-time job and overtime. So there is a level of expectation that the school, the faculty consider when they're handing out these assignments and stuff like that. So I know some of you, I know a lot of you, you're studying, and sometimes you're not complaining, but because we're students and we all think, boy, Professor DeTiro is just handing out so much homework, or Professor X, she is a beast when it comes to homework and things like that. We got to meet these compliances. Now, sometimes if, it may happen that, kind of get through the material quickly. Now, so we looked at survivorship bias. You want to concentrate on things that you might find a weakness to, right? And then, one second. How does a faculty member develop courses? What is our level of expectations? How could we study tailored based upon the given faculty member? Well, that's where you got to actually look at the whole course content. That's where you got to understand the faculty member. And let's take a look at a couple of my classes. Well, we're going to start with programming logic, but this could be any of my classes. This one is just, I'm picking on programming logic, but I'll also look at Security Plus course. General rule of thumb. We're going to start with the textbook is not the universe. The faculty will spend a lot of time looking for the appropriate textbook that they want to use. Sometimes we're happy with it. Sometimes we're less than happy with it. We may look at many, many textbooks before we find the one that we're happy. Some faculty don't use textbooks. They may use handouts and stuff like that. But regardless of what the faculty chose, understand there's going to be strengths and weaknesses of that particular content provider. But that's not going to be the universe, right? The textbook is not the universe. Now, in all my courses, I do try to find an appropriate textbook, but it's never perfect. If you look over my shoulder, I have a lot of extra books. I'm constantly looking at other things outside the textbook. So I view the textbook as kind of a framework that we're going to hang the course on. If I find a better one, fine. Now, usually for most faculty, it takes them about 3 to 4 times of teaching a course before they hammer out all the particular issues. That shouldn't be of any disadvantage to the student. So if it's the first time a faculty member is teaching a course, you might see some roughness around the edges. By the 3rd or 4th time they teach this course, most of those roughnesses are things. So a lot of times if you see, for example, my programming logic course, it's kind of in that rough stage. I haven't taught it that many times, but if you look at my Security Plus, I've taught that many, many times. And we find ways to improve it. And sometimes we just rewrite things. So rule 1, read the textbook with the understanding that, this is my study habit. Rule 1, read the textbook with the understanding that it's not the universe. There's a lot more that can be outside of the textbook. The second thing you need to look at, and again, we'll use programming logic here, is look if there's anything additional. All right, I provide additional external tutorials for the students because I do understand that the textbook's not the universe. Let's take a look at what some other people may view on that particular content. In my Security Plus course, I don't really have tutorials. I often go looking for them. I do provide some videos and clips, YouTube videos and stuff like that. So you read the textbook, and then you look at any external resources that the faculty wants you to review. Those are going to build that knowledge. The next thing is come to lecture or look at content-specific videos created by the faculty member. We love for you to come into our lecture. That's what we're there for. But if you don't come in lecture and the faculty member provides some kind of video, most of the time those videos might just be the lecture. Look at those videos. See what the instructor is providing. Now, again, in my programming logic course, I have, in some of my programming courses, I have a lot of videos. In my Security Plus course, I don't have as many videos. I usually may create a video or two and put them out there. You'll notice I often have like videos of the week up here. Those might not be related directly to the content, but they're probably going to be related to some ways of helping you. So read the textbook. Look if there's any external information, tutorials, articles, websites that the instructor wants to go to, and then look for content that was created by the faculty member. All of those are kind of legs on our three-leg stool. Now, the next one is search the fine web. If you're working with content, again, the textbook's not the universe, the faculty's not the universe, even the internet's not the universe, but I search the fine web for anything. For example, I'll jump out of programming for a second here. Let's say I'm doing a lecture on Nmap, which is a tool that we use in cybersecurity a great deal. I'm not an Nmap professional. I have textbooks on it, but sometimes I want to see how other people use it. So guess what I do? I basically go to the internet and I type Nmap and maybe I do usage examples. We don't want to copy and paste what other people are doing, but there is so much on the internet, especially in the YouTube universe, where they're showing you how to use some of these tools. We just don't have enough time. Even that 2 to 3 hours and then the hours that we get, there's not a lot enough time to cover some of the fine granular detail in a lot of tools we use. So I encourage the students to search the fine web. In programming, let's say I do this in programming all the time. I don't remember specific functions or methods in Python or Java or any programming language I use. So oftentimes, one of the first, let's see, I need to split a sentence into, or I need to split something into a list. Well, I can do something called Python split. All right, splitting strings, that might be of something of interest, and that's searching the fine web. Then we get into, now this one is kind of like step 5, but it's not really step 5. It's kind of step 1A, 2A, 3, all the other steps combined. Ask the instructor, right? First of all, teach yourself how to self-tutor yourself. If you've searched the fine web, you looked at books, you looked at external things, now it's time to ask the instructor a question. Now, some people will have different models to this. Some people may say, if you can't figure it out in 5 minutes, email the instructor. You're going to be emailing the instructor a lot if you go under that premise. Some say if you can't figure it out after 15 minutes. What I would say is if you can't figure it out and you're really beginning to struggle, at that point, yeah, that's what the instructor is there for. We're there to help. And a lot of times you may ask us a question. We'll say, hey, well, wait a second here. Give me a little bit of time to research it on my own. If you ask us a question that's really easy for us to answer, right, and it's not just a question that we've been doing this a lot or something like that, but if it's a question that we feel that, you could have answered that one yourself. Let's say, for example, you asked the question, hey, Nick, how can I find the length of a string, or hey Nick, how do I do I can look up an IP address or a port scan using Nmap. Those are all fundamental questions, and I will say, hey, here real quickly, here's how you do it. But you know what? Do a little search on the fine web and really kind of explore it. Sometimes I personally believe we learn more when we're kind of self-taught enough. That doesn't mean that I'm not here to teach you or the faculty's not here to teach you. So let's go through these 5 steps. All right. Read the textbook. Read whatever the instructor is providing as the framework for the course. But understand that is not the universe. There is so much, especially in cybersecurity and networking, any of the topics, any of the ITCS topics, there's so much to the universe. They can't shove that into a single textbook. Complete any external tutorials or websites that the instructor may provide that's not created by the instructor. I often provide a lot of YouTube videos. Probably the instructor says, hey, that's some pretty decent material that applies to this particular knowledge. Come to lecture or watch any custom videos that the instructor provided. Again, the lecture, and if they're providing custom videos, that's probably an indication. I'll go back here. That's probably an indication that the instructor finds that important. Learn to self-tutor. Search the fine web. There's, especially in the IT world, if you're doing anything with cybersecurity, there is so much content out there about cybersecurity, different tools you can use, Nmap, HPing, I'm drawing a blank. There's just so many of them out there. Meta exploit 2, same thing with the programming side. There's so many examples of how to do programming. You don't want to copy and paste. You want to learn. So search that fine web. And then ask the instructor a question. Ask them for help. Now, that's not step 5. That's any kind of step. If you're reading the textbook and there's something you don't understand in that textbook, ask the instructor. If you're looking at a tutorial, ask the instructor. Eventually, the number of times you're going to ask the instructor things is going to slowly creep down, and you're going to learn how to find out that information yourself. Because remember, at a certain point, you're going to be done with the class. We love hearing from past students, but you're going to be done with the class. So we, as instructors, not only trying to teach you content, we're trying to teach you how to be a good provider of this technology afterwards. And one last thing. Tutorial services. The instructors do not provide tutorial service. I'll start with the negative first. Instructors do not provide tutorial services. If you come to my office, I'm going to help you, but we're not going to schedule. We're going to meet every week for an hour. No. But Lakeland has a very, very good learning center with tutorial services. And I've heard this argument for years. Well, if the instructor was good, I wouldn't need a tutorial service. Or the other argument I hear is I feel weak when I go to tutorial services. What I've discovered, and I've used tutorial services when I was in school, is a lot of times I just need that other perspective on things. Maybe I need that one-on-one with somebody who's going to show me the other perspective. Maybe I just need to, I'm using this with my hand, maybe I just need to get over that hump or something like that. And a lot of people may use tutorial service one time. A lot of people are like, you know what, I feel that comfort with that person at tutorial services. So there is another approach for ways you can improve your study habits. And then eventually your goal is to be a better student of any of the technology. You'll hear me say this in class oftentimes. It's like, I'm not just teaching you cybersecurity, not teaching you networking, not teaching you coding, anything like that. I'm trying to teach, and good faculty members do this, we're trying to teach you good study behavior, because at a certain point, you're pretty much on your own. So with that knowledge, let's go out and learn something.